folks, Joni Madden here, leader of Cherish the Ladies, the Celtic music ensemble who are so excited to announce that we're coming back to the Troy Music Bank Savings Hall on Tuesday night, December 7th for our Celtic Christmas program. And I can't tell you how excited we are to be coming back on the road after such a long time and knowing that the Troy Savings Bank is taking every precaution, vaccinated people only, as well as masks must be worn. And you know what? Well, it's great to be finally being able to get out and meet our friends and our neighbors and be careful and cautious while enjoying a fantastic program. And we've played our Celtic Christmas show many times at the Savings Bank. And I have to say, I don't have to tell any of you folks around there, but the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, one of our favorite venues in the entire world. And that's coming from someone who has led a troupe 4,000 concerts around the world so far, the finest performing arts centers. None can match that beautiful acoustics and that venue. So I'm so happy to tell you we're coming back with our 11-piece show for a family-friendly Christmas program with holiday favorites, songs you know, songs to touch the heartstrings, songs of immigration, and tell the Christmas story around families. And we'd love you all to come join us again Tuesday night, December 7th. And I'm bringing with me an incredible group. I'll be playing whistles, flutes, and singing a couple of songs. We have Mary Coogan on guitar and mandolin, Morella Murray, All-Ireland champion accordion player, Nulla Casey, All-Ireland champion fiddle player, singing as well. We have Gabriel Donoghue, one of the finest musicians you'll ever hear on piano and guitar vocals. We also have the incredible Kathy Ryan coming to sing lead vocals. And nobody better than Kathy sang with us for many years. And she's just a gorgeous singer, one of the finest you'll ever hear. And along with Kathy, we also have Bruce Foley, a beautiful singer as well, gorgeous tenor. And Cherish the Ladies show would not be complete without the step dancers, and we're bringing three of the best. We have world champion Michael Holland. We have Noel Spillane, who is a national champion. And we also have Caitlin Ward, regional champion as well. Caitlin Ward, fantastic. So listen, music, song, dancing, camaraderie, community, and Christmas. What more would you want? Tuesday night, December the 7th, Troy Savings Bank Music Hall. Tickets are going fast, so hope you pick up your tickets soon. And now I want you to stay tuned for for James and Oona, and they're gonna from Drank the Gold, and they're gonna play a couple of music, some Irish music and songs for you right now. So enjoy the music with James and Oona, and we will see you all on Tuesday night, December the 7th. Woo!
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. I think we won't chat with you too long because we're gonna let it go straight to the performance, to the show. But we just wanted to thank you all for tuning in. And my name is Oona. This is James. We have a group called Drank the Gold. And is there anything else you want to say?
Well, we go into a lot in the video about who we are and what we're doing, and talk a lot about Irish music, and we play a few tunes. But if anyone has any questions, I think there's going to be a Q&A at the end. So
you can take notes.
Or if you just are curious about anything that we didn't address in the video, please don't hesitate to ask, because we've allowed some time for that, and we'd love to hear your questions. So I guess we should just get right into it.
Yeah, enjoy.
Hi, I'm James Gascoyne.
My name is Oona Grady, and we are Drank the Gold.
Yes, we're from Saratoga Springs. We're currently residing in Saratoga Springs, and our duo plays Irish and American old-time influenced music.
Lots of different kind of fiddle-forward music, I suppose.
We play around the region doing various gigs, and we're very happy to be part of this thing for the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, talking about, today we're going to be mainly talking about Irish music.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ithaca, New York, which is a couple hours west of here. But my family comes from Ireland, and so I grew up with a lot of stories and songs and music to do with Ireland, and we always listened to it and heard stories. My great-grandparents came from Ireland. So my dad and his sisters, my aunts, they remember their grandparents and their grandmother especially. They called her Nana. She lived with them in New York, in the Bronx. So we listened to lots of Irish music in our house, and also we would go see performances. And when I was a kid, I was learning the violin, and then I started taking Irish fiddle lessons from a family friend named Ed McGowan when I was about 10. And so that kind of ended up making a big impact in my life. But I'm just remembering back to being about 10 years old and learning my first tune called Leg of the Duck, which I thought was a funny name. I still do. But it's a jig, an Irish jig, and it's a very cute melody. Maybe I'll just play a little bit of that now. This is the first section. Can you hear that at the end of the phrases? The music kind of says, "The leg of the duck, the leg of the duck." So I think there's actually some silly words to the whole tune. I don't know the rest of them, but the chorus part is "the leg of the duck." It must be a silly song about a duck's leg. But that was my first tune. Maybe I'll play the whole thing a little faster. That speed I played first would have been my learning speed. But then when I put the tune together, it's going to be that A part, and then repeat that A part one more time, and then 2 B parts. Maybe I'll play them a little faster. You want to join me?
Sure.
Ready, go. Very first tune I ever learned. So after I learned that tune, The Leg of the Duck, I learned a couple more tunes. And then when I was about 12, my family, I have a very large family, about 16 of us went over to Ireland for a whole month. That was really exciting, and really exciting for my music, because I got to bring my fiddle and I got to play it over there and join in some sessions and play the couple tunes that I knew. And I also got to busk on the street and make a couple pounds. That was the kind of money they had over there then. And it really motivated me to keep studying and keep listening and keep working. And so as a teenager, I just was really learning a lot about Irish music, and I learned about a series of festivals and competitions where you could go compete in New York City, which was a couple hours from where I was growing up, and there was all types of categories and instruments and age groups, and if you did really well in those competitions, you would qualify to go over and compete in Ireland for playing Irish music, which I ended up doing. And again, this was very motivating and very exciting. And so as a teenager, I traveled to Ireland 3 summers in a row to go to these competitions, and I would go to a week of music camp and meet other young people learning Irish music, and play in the competitions on the weekend, and go out and play in music sessions with other people, where each person gets to start a tune and see if other people know it, and you just get to enjoy playing tunes together. And I was just so excited and so in love with this music that I ended up moving to Ireland when I went to college and studying Irish music for 4.5 years over there in Cork. This was over in the southwest of Ireland. And my fiddle teacher while I was in college is named Connie O'Connell. And he taught me lots of music, including lots of polkas and slides, which are types of tunes that come from this area where he lived, which was a new type of music for me. Because even though Ireland is not a very big place compared to here, to New York State, there's a lot of different geographic regions, areas, and depending on where you live and maybe where you come from, people might play certain tunes and teach each other certain music, and if you go to another place, like across the country, people might play a different set of tunes. So I was learning a whole new set of music, and actually those tunes we played at the beginning, we didn't introduce them yet. Maybe I'll do that. I don't think we did. They were 3 tunes, and those probably all 3 of them, I think I probably got to know. If Connie didn't teach them to me, I probably got to know them better from learning from him. They're called the Cuckanandy, is the first tune. The second tune is Pagina Rafferta, and the third tune is The Breeches Full of Stitches. So I like sometimes the tune names are really interesting ideas, such as pants, which I think is what breeches are, full of stitches. So maybe they're kind of old and you had to put some patches on them. That's what I'm imagining for that last tune. So in any case, I got kind of deeper and deeper into learning Irish music as I got older. And eventually I moved back to this country because I missed my family. But I still play lots of Irish tunes, and there's lots of people over here who play as well.
I had a slightly different musical upbringing than Oona did. Here, I grew up outside of Louisville, Kentucky, and I didn't grow up playing music, but I heard a lot of music on public radio and public television, like bluegrassy and old-timey stuff. And I guess the first time I heard Irish music was on a NPR program called The Thistle and Shamrock.
I listened to that when I was growing up as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so I had heard the music and I loved music from an early age, but I didn't really play until I was a bit older. And I started playing guitar when I was a teenager. And as I got more into music, I definitely had a passion for hearing different styles of music from around the world and around the United States, and just anything I could get my hands on, really. And one of the jobs I had when I was a young adult is I worked in a bookstore, and they had a music department there in the bookstore. And one of the advantages of working there is that you got to take home, they would get free copies of CDs from the distributors, and so we could kind of have our pick of taking these CDs that were like promotional CDs. And there were maybe things that other people didn't necessarily want. So they were just hanging out there, and I used to love all the Irish and Celtic music, I guess you could say, things like Scottish music and things like that, and
Fiddly music.
fiddly music. And I especially loved bands like Lunasa and Solas. I remember hearing those bands, and I come to find out later that Oona had also heard those bands growing up.
Those were, I was listening to them a lot when I was young, and we would go to their concerts. I wonder, I know you've seen them more recently, but you were just listening to them on CD at that point?
Just listening. I did get to go to a lot of concerts when I was young, though, which was really great. But I didn't actually get to play any of this music until I met Oona here. And Oona has a bunch of cousins who are all wonderful musicians. And they had a concert that they needed a guitar player for. And Oona knew that I played guitar, but even though I didn't really know how to play the Irish music on guitar, she suggested that I learn. So I got a hold of a DVD by a guitar player named John Doyle, and I had a quick crash course in how to play guitar for Irish tunes. And
I knew you were up for the challenge.
well, the concert went okay, so I really got the bug for the music after that, and it made me want to learn more about the tradition and try to be more authentic in the way that I would approach it. So I really went down this rabbit hole of learning about Irish music, and it's been great.
Yeah, well, I should say, growing up with my cousins in Ithaca, I feel really lucky because there weren't a lot of young people playing Irish music there at the time, but we all had each other, and so we could just have our own little family learning experiences. I'm one of the older cousins, so often I would be learning tunes from my teacher, from Ed, and then I would be teaching them on to my younger siblings and cousins, and so we had sort of a little family, the makings of a family band, which eventually, when we were older, after I moved back home from Ireland, I said to my cousins, "You guys, let's make a band. We have so much fun playing for ourselves at home and for our families. Why don't we see what we can do with this?" And we all had fun traveling around and doing concerts over the years. And like James mentioned, sometimes we had to hire people to play guitar with us because none of us played guitar at that time. And luckily, we found some great people willing to learn or figure it out. And James was a great asset to that band for sure.
Thank you.
And then I moved out of Ithaca over here to Saratoga Springs. And so we couldn't play as often with the Grady girls, my cousins. But James and I continued playing as a duo. And one place that we both learned a lot is going down to the Catskills in the summer. There's a great Irish music festival and camp, and there's all sorts of activities. But especially one of the exciting times is in July. They have something called Irish Arts Week, and it's in a little town called East Durham. And I learned a lot of fiddle music from teachers there as a teenager when I was learning, and continue to enjoy going back and meeting up with old friends and playing music together. And when you were learning guitar, we went down there and we found some guitar classes for you.
Yeah, that experience at the Catskills Irish Arts Week really changed my guitar playing. I took a class with two wonderful guitar players, Josh Dukes and John Blake, and their class was on accompanying Irish tunes with a different tuning on the guitar. The guitar has a specific way that's normally tuned. The strings are normally tuned E, A, D, G, B, E.
If you just went to a music shop or to someone's house and you picked up their guitar, it's probably tuned that way.
Yeah. But there's other ways of tuning the guitar, of course. You can just adjust your tuners here and you can get pretty much any notes you want. And a tuning that works really great with Irish music specifically and fiddle music in general is called Dadgad. And that's where the strings are D, A, D, G, A, D.
Dadgad.
Dadgad. And their class was about Dadgad guitar, and it's a really interesting tuning. That's what my guitar is tuned to right now. Well, I have a cape on also. But the unique thing about that is it fits really well with the notes on the fiddle, the open strings on the fiddle, and the keys that Irish music is played in. So once I took their class, I don't think I ever really tuned my guitar back from that. And it's been really great to explore this world of guitar that I never knew existed until a couple years ago.
So like I said, my great-grandparents came over from Ireland over to New York City in about 100 years ago, actually. They both came from County Galway, but they didn't know each other in Galway. They lived on two sides of a big lake, so they probably just didn't ever meet each other. But they got over to New York, and it kind of makes sense to me, I guess. They both ended up as Irish immigrants living in New York. They would go to different Irish sort of community events, including one of the events that they both ended up going to was called the Galway Men's Ball. And that's where they met Anna Clunan and John Joseph O'Grady. And I'm not sure that Anna played any music, but according to family stories, my great-grandfather played the accordion. And I was always told when I was taking lessons as a kid that one of his favorite tunes to play was called the Blackbird. And the phrase that I was told is that he played at every wake, wedding, and funeral. And that this was one of his favorite tunes. And so as a kid, of course, it seemed like a good idea that I learn this tune, the Blackbird. But when I got to my lesson and was presented with the Blackbird, it turned out it was a little trickier than some of the other tunes, like Leg of the Duck. So I was like, oh man, I have to work kind of hard at this one. But maybe this is a good moment just to explain a little bit about the experience of learning Irish tunes by ear, which is how most people teach and learn this type of music. Usually I would go to my lesson and my teacher, he would play on his fiddle, he would play the tune, and I would just listen to it. He wouldn't give me sheet music. And then he would sometimes he would record the tune. I had a little tape recorder, little Walkman tape recorder. And so sometimes he would record the tune that I was supposed to learn at the end of a lesson, and I would take it home for the week and listen to it. And so then the following week I would show up, and he would probably play it again just to refresh my memory. And then he would break it into phrases and play a phrase, like maybe I'll just play the beginning of the Blackbird. Maybe he'd play something about that long. And then I would try to figure it out, and we would play it back and forth till I learned it, and then he would move on to the next phrase, which would be maybe something like that, and then we would put it together. And just keep going back and forth, breaking it into small little groups of notes until we built the whole tune. And that's typically how my lessons would go. But this tune was a little trickier, especially because the B part, Irish tunes are usually built out of sections that people call like an A part and then a B part. Usually you get to stop at the B part, but sometimes there's a C part, and if it's a really long tune, you get a D part. But luckily this only had an A part and a B part, but the B part is about double long. And that seemed really hard to me. So maybe we could play it?
Yeah.
And you can kind of listen. Maybe we'll just play the A part and stop, so that you can hear how long the A part is. And then we'll do the next thing. So here's one A part. Ready, go. that A part, just kind of exactly the same. And then we go on to the B part. And let's show you how long this B part is, because, man, it felt kind of tricky when I was trying to learn it. Sometimes it still feels tricky to me. Ready, go. Kind of long, right? So then you'd play another B part, and then you're ready to circle back to the beginning of the tune and go A part, B part, B part, and circle through that tune as many times as you can, till you get tired of it.
Well, and this tune goes with a specific dance, right?
That's a good point, yeah. A lot of tunes are maybe just a certain dance rhythm, and so if we play a jig, you could dance any kind of jig to that tune, and we could play any jig tune to be able to have the dancer dance the jig. But this is what's called a set dance, which means that this melody that I'm playing is connected to a set step. It's kind of they go with each other. Yeah, so we unfortunately we can't dance while we play, but I hope you get a chance to watch people dancing to Irish music at some point, and the Blackbird has a really nice, a beautiful dance that goes with it. Those chords that you're playing, though, do you have to, maybe you could just explain what you're thinking about when you make that up, because I explained how my melody is kind of, I get to make a couple creative decisions, but mostly I have to play the notes that Ed taught me, that supposedly my great-grandfather played.
Right. Well, one of the first puzzling things that I encountered about accompanying Irish tunes is that there's no specific chords. Well, the music isn't written down, first of all, so there's no sheet music that you can have that has what chords you should play as an accompanist. And furthermore, the music is the melody. There's no chords necessarily specified, so I would ask Oona or her cousins what chords I should be playing with them, and
we would say, I don't know, because we don't know how to play the chord part, and we didn't learn that part.
Right, so it's kind of up to you as an accompanist to play the appropriate chords that would fit with the harmony of the music, and which is kind of tricky. But also, the guitar isn't a traditional Irish instrument, and so a lot of what the role that you would play is to emulate a chordal instrument that it is sort of more traditional, like, say, a harp. Sometimes I try and imagine my guitar strings are harp strings, and I'm kind of plucking them along with the melody. Or another traditional accompaniment source is on the uilleann pipes, which is the Irish bagpipe. There's these notes called regulators, and those are drone notes that the piper can play with their
wrist, I think.
Their wrist.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, but you can only play a couple notes at a time. So the piper would be playing the melody on the chanter, and with their elbow or their
I think it's
wrist,
their right wrist, if you're right-handed.
They would be adding these other chord notes. So sometimes I try to imagine that I'm a piper, and every once in a while I'll play a couple notes and kind of accentuate the melody.
That's so interesting that you think about that, because sometimes, mostly when I'm playing the fiddle, I'm playing the melody notes, but sometimes I hit another extra string and an extra note while I'm playing, and sometimes I'm imagining that I'm a piper too when I do that. Let me see if I can demonstrate. You hear how I'm kind of hitting extra notes, and I'm imagining it's my wrist.
Very pipey.
Maybe let's play that whole Blackbird.
Sure.
Should we'll just, since it's kind of a long tune, maybe we'll just do 2 A parts and 2 B parts, and then we'll be done.
Sounds good.
we'll get into playing it many times through another day. Ready, go. So one of the types of Irish dances is called a jig, like we might have mentioned earlier. And maybe we should just take a minute to explain what a jig actually is. Mm-hmm. One way you can count it is just count up to 6. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if counting numbers is a little boring, sometimes it's fun to say words instead that kind of give you the sense of the jig rhythm. And there's all different types of words, of course, that you could try using. One way that I learned is to say rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages.
Rash.
If you don't know what rashers are, that's the word for bacon in Ireland. so it's kind of describing a fun idea for breakfast. So you could say rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages, rashers and sausages. This is a jig. I think that's pretty easy to stick in your mind and remember that. So maybe we could play some jigs.
Yeah.
And you could try just saying that along. You could either count to 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or you could try saying rashers and sausages if you like. Another thing we should probably explain is that usually when you're performing Irish music, you take a tune, such as, do you remember how I played the Leg of the Duck, that jig, that very first jig I learned? You'll start with a tune, and then usually you're going to think of a couple more tunes that are, usually you stick with the same type. So if we start with a jig, we're probably going to go into another jig. You can break that rule, but for now, let's stick with jigs just to keep it simple. Yeah. And so often you try to think of 2 or maybe 3 or even more tunes that might sound nice going one into the next without stopping. And see if you can kind of make a big arrangement that kind of maybe see if when you switch into the next tune it can sort of have a different mood or build some excitement. There's no right or wrong way to make sets. It's just a matter of experimenting. But this is a set that we put together. Well, actually, the first 2 tunes, it's 3 tunes, 3 jigs. The first 2 tunes I learned, and they were already attached. The people that I learned them from, a fiddle player called Lizzie Doe, who was a person that I met while I lived in Ireland, she had learned them from another fiddle player and teacher, Siobhan Peoples. And I believe that Siobhan had taught her these tunes going one into the next. So it's like from a couple different people that we have this set of 2 tunes. But then when we started performing them, we said, let's put a 3rd tune at the end, just to put our own little stamp on it. So we'll go from Lucy Farr's jig into Paddy Fahey's jig into the Battering Ram is the 3rd tune that we added. So see if you can count those rashers and sausages while we play, and also see if you can notice when we switch tunes. Probably just from listening you might be able to tell, but also you can watch how we look at each other, because sometimes we give each other little signals.
Yeah, it's not necessarily specified how many times we'll play through a tune, so we have to pay attention or I have to pay attention to Oona when she's going to start the
Because
next
I'm the
tune.
one playing the melody, it's sort of up to me to decide when I'm going to switch. But usually we do it about 2 or 3 times before we switch. So we'll probably stick to that plan. Ready. So now that you know about jig rhythm and how to count and follow along with a jig, we might as well teach you another dance tune type. Probably the most common type in Irish music is a reel, which I like to count as Black and Decker, Black and Decker, Black and Decker, Black and Decker. But you could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's not very fun. So saying something like Black and Decker is kind of fun. Do you have a different word, or do you like to think that one?
Waka chicka, waka chicka, waka chicka, waka chicka.
Whatever you like. You could probably make up lots of options. But so something let's see, let's see, I'm just gonna play the beginning. We're gonna play a set of reels for you in a second, but let me just play the beginning so we can find that Black & Decker. So, Black & Decker, Black & Decker. I can't sing while I play very well, so I don't know if you could hear me, but I was trying to say Black & Decker, Black & Decker, Black & Decker, Black & Decker, something like that. So see if you can count along, or just maybe you just tap your foot. Black & Decker, Black & Decker, Black & Decker, Black & Decker, something like that.
Yeah.
And we're gonna play a couple, well, we'll play 3 of them. So it's the Navvy on the Shore.
The Pullet?
The Pullet is the second one, and the last one is the Skylark. So these are 3 reels, and
Maybe a little faster than.
yeah, well, that was just sort of a practice speed.
Okay.
All right, this is performance speed though. Ready? Ready. So in the Irish tradition, a lot of the tunes that we're playing, that we've played today and that a lot of people play, some of them are hundreds and hundreds of years old. Some of them are maybe, some of them we know who wrote them. Some of them people have just been teaching them to each other, and it's kind of, the author or the composer is kind of lost. That information is we don't know anymore. But one thing that I think is really exciting about the Irish tradition and most types of traditional music is that people are still making up new tunes, and part of what makes it a living tradition is that as much as we enjoy playing old tunes, we also you have to keep coming up with new material and keep adding to keep the tradition alive. And one thing that James has had a really fun time doing, I think, is making up new tunes in the kind of in the style of Irish music.
Well, one of my favorite things to do ever since I started playing music was to try and come up with my own ideas that were sort of based on things that I had heard or just came to my imagination. And it was kind of no different when I started listening to all these tunes that Oona was teaching me from the Irish tradition. I started noodling around on guitar and banjo, and sooner or later some ideas came to me. So we'd like to play a couple of those for you. The first one is a slip jig, and the second one is a jig. First one's called The Florida, because I wrote it in Florida. And the second one we like to call Drank the Gold, which is
After our band.
it's our namesake jig.
Yeah, so James wrote these tunes, and it's a real fun pleasure to get to play newly composed Irish tunes as well as the old ones.
Oh,
All right, so The Florida and Drink the Gold. And before we finish, we just want to thank the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall for having us,
yes, indeed.
and enjoy the Cherish the Ladies show. It's going to be so much fun. All right, ready. Thanks everyone for your questions during the program. Let's see, it looks like we have a new comment from Hunter.
Oh, thank you, Hunter. Glad you could make it to check it out. I should mention that one of the last performances that we saw before the pandemic was actually Cherish the Ladies at Cafe Lena in Saratoga.
Yeah, back in March of 2020. So yeah. Anyway, we just realized that we're so much looking forward to this show, and it's sort of a little full circle for us. Thanks everyone for tuning in and for all your comments and questions so far. I was just wanting to also reminisce about growing up. And of course, I've always been knowing about Cherish the Ladies and looking up to them since I was learning the fiddle when I was young, and I had such a great time with my cousins, the Grady girls. They came to Ithaca. They did a concert in Ithaca, and they asked us to open up for their concert. So we got to play a couple tunes at the beginning of their show. This was years and years and years ago, before we really even had a band. It's before we'd gone professional.
I missed out on that one.
Yeah, long before James, but they were so encouraging, and so I'm excited for this time again. And yeah, so the black violin, we haven't seen them perform live, or I haven't.
I've seen YouTube
but
videos.
we've watched them on video.
Very cool.
And trying to think. Earlier, I'm just wanting to recap maybe some of the questions from earlier. The Irish fiddle, and any kind of fiddle, when people use that word fiddle, it is the same instrument, completely the same thing as a violin. And it really is just talking about the kind of music people are playing. Usually that's what people mean when they use a different word. But it's the same instrument. And so if you already are learning violin, or if you are thinking of learning violin, or you have a violin in your house, you could be playing this kind of fiddle music as well. So that's one point. And then also we got a question about whether or not you could play this kind of music on cello, and absolutely. Sometimes because the cello it's very related to the violin, right? It's in the same family, but its notes are lower, are kind of deeper. So sometimes it sounds really nice when the cello plays the melody, just like what I was playing. But sometimes it's nice to have the cello play a sort of more of a accompanying part, a little bit more similar to what James was playing. But it's a really it's a fun instrument, and a little bit similar to guitar. I think it's kind of an exciting instrument to play, because it's not, whereas the fiddle is one of the instruments that people have been using to play Irish music for a really long time. So it's kind of like my job is like a little bit set. If I want to play Irish fiddle, I have a lot of people to look up to and to learn from. There's a lot less people over history that James can look to for guitar playing advice, although there's a lot of great guitar players
certainly
to study. But it's the tradition of playing guitar in Irish music is much newer. And I would say cello is even newer than guitar. So in a way, it's an exciting thing to try an instrument that's less, that people have spent less time developing in this tradition, and because then you have a lot more options to make it up and figure out what sounds nice to you.
Well, we know for certain one cellist who plays Irish tunes is Abby Newton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a friend, and she's a wonderful cello. And wonderful musician.
She's a wonderful cello.
She's not a cello; she's a person. But she
mainly does Scottish music.
She plays a little bit more Scottish music, which obviously is very similar to Irish music because it's very close by. But she definitely plays some Irish music as well on the cello, so she'd be someone to look up. But there's all kinds of we could if you asked us to start telling you musicians to listen to, we'd be here all day.
Here a long time.
that would be a fun program. Just Oona and James listen to the music they love.
Well, one resource where you can find this stuff for yourself is there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Particularly, I found that the Irish language public television station, it's called TG4. I guess we could put that in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just write it how it looks.
They have lots and lots of great traditional music on their YouTube channel.
They have a lot of like little short documentaries featuring different musicians or what have you. And
some of it is in Irish language, and there'll be subtitles, but a lot of it is them speaking in English also. But there is the Irish language component.
But you can set the subtitles. That's what we do.
Yes.
And I'll just tell you though, TG4, how we can read that, if you want to say it how an Irish person would say it, is TG Cahir, because Cahir is how you say 4.
Cahir.
So now you can sound like you're on in the in crowd. But yeah, that's a great tip. TG Cahir is a great resource.
And if anyone has further questions about the music, or about where to find music to listen to, or events to go check out, or if you actually if you want to study this music, just send us an email. We're pretty easy to find. We're called Drank the Gold.
If you look up drankthegold.com, we have a little website, and there's a little contact form, so that's a good way to reach us.
So we'd be happy to, if you reach out to us, we'll definitely get back to you with anything we can help with related to the music.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Oh, that's a good one.
Good question. So the origin of our band name. Do you want to take this one?
You can tell. I think we have the book here.
Yeah, maybe look on the bookshelf while I start off the story. Oh, you found it already. So when we decided to make a band, we of course thought we better choose a name, because how else will we tell people what we're doing? But we kind of got stuck because we couldn't figure out what our name should be, and we were arguing.
Came up with some really bad ones, and we almost gave up.
We said maybe this was a bad idea. Never mind. But then we thought, well, let's give it one more try, and we actually you want to hold it up? We found this book on the bookshelf, which is a book that my family has been sharing around since around that time that we did that big huge family trip to Ireland when I was 12. One thing to clarify, James pointed out that I might have misled you in saying that it was 16 family members. They're not. That included my grandparents and cousins and aunts, some of my aunts, as well as my parents and my brothers. So I don't have an immediate family of 16 people. But in any case, I think it was. I think my aunt found this book at some point during these travels over to Ireland, and it's sort of a modern fairy tale talking about sort of supernatural fairy tale type events, and it's a very good story. You should look it up. The Hounds of the Morrigan.
Very good story by Pat O'Shea.
It might be hard to see.
Oh yeah.
But we'll tell you if you didn't catch it. But in any case, we opened up the book, and right away, first thing we read.
We could do a little reading here.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the prologue from The Hounds of the Morrigan by Pat O'Shea. I hope we don't encounter any copyright issues here. Rising up into the air, they took to the sky and flew, from west and beyond west, into the wind and through it. They came past countless moons and suns. One laughed and briefly wore a scarf of raindrops in her hair. And then, with wicked feet, she kicked a cloud and caused rain to swamp a boat. At times, they dived into the track of the moon in the dark sea water and opened their mouths to swallow the silver. At times, they plunged into the path of the sun in the green-blue ocean and opened their mouths and drank the gold.
And we said, there it is, drank the gold. All right. And so that, my friends, is how you choose a band name, or how we chose a band name.
Yeah. Fun story. Thank you for asking, Laura.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for all of your questions and engagement. And we'd love to hear more from you in the future. And of course, thanks to the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall for having us.